Sabres lose 5-2, but I'm actually not feeling that down in the dumps about them after this game. We'll talk about the win streak coming to an end, what happened, and what are we going to do about the Cozens line. I've got a potential solution. Get to that coming up here on the Locked On Sabres podcast.
Your Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, and thanks for making the Locked On Sabres podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, and that includes our YouTube channel where you can watch the show. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet. You get started with a $150 bonus bet if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Sneaky Joe DiBiase on a Tuesday show following a 5-2 loss to the Florida Panthers. The Sabres win streak ends at 3, and hopefully they'll be able to start one again against the Islanders on Friday. But we'll talk a lot about the Florida game on today's episode. I want to get to the Dylan Cozens line a little bit later on in today's show. That was our question of the day on our Locked On Sabres text line, which, by the way, if you would like to check out or you'd like to be a subscriber to, you can sign up by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnSabres. So be sure to check that out there. Lot to get to on today's show. 5-2, Panthers over the Sabres. My takeaways, some of the goal breakdowns, what went wrong on especially the first 3 goals that Florida scored in this game. Some monumental mental errors on singular plays by the Sabres in this game. Dumb plays. Dumb defensive plays by the Sabres all over the place. But I'm going to actually start this show on a bit of a positive note. I know they lost 5-2. I don't feel like the Sabres played all that poorly. They lost by 3 goals. They were down 2-0 at the end of the first period, but you looked up at the end of the first and went, I really didn't think they played that bad. And then you go to the stats and go, okay, yeah, they only gave up 6 shots on goal in the first period. Okay, so but they lost the period, right? They lost the period by 2, a couple of opportunities that we'll talk about coming up, dumb defensive plays again. But what were some of the numbers in that first period other than the shots? Shot attempts, 18-15 in favor of the Sabres. Scoring chances were in favor of Florida, 7-4. Sabres did not give up, though, a high-danger chance in the first period to the Florida Panthers. At least at 5-on-5, they did not. So they start the second, though, and it's, all right, you didn't play that poorly. Let's see what you got. Make it a game. I threw that in our text line when we were watching the game, like, hey, just win this period, make the third period interesting because it's Florida. It's the defending Stanley Cup champions. They are one of the best hockey teams in the league. They are one of the most complete rosters in the league. Just don't let the game get away from you. And they didn't. Not only didn't they came out with what I thought was one of their strongest efforts of the season. That second period by the Buffalo Sabres got me so fired up and into the game that I was at one point in a negative way whipped off my hat because of a moment. They had got me sucked into the game so much because of how they were playing that when something went wrong, I was like, oh, furious. By the way, the moment I'm thinking about for that, and maybe you did the same thing, was when Owen Power had a wide open net in the second period. That slight hesitation plus a shot that was along the ice. Bobrovsky got back into position to make the save. But I was like, oh no, like in that moment. And it's because of how well they played. They were flying up and down the ice. They were generating chances. They were hitting everything that moved. They were possessing the puck. They were getting the puck to the net. They were harassing the Panthers when they had the puck. Florida had their moments too, even in that stretch. It was a very good hockey game for 15 minutes, like top-notch level excitement that you were seeing. And man, when they're cooking, the Tage line, every show I got to mention it. Every show, because every game they have stretches like that where, man, look at the Tage Thompson line go. But in that stretch, it wasn't just them. Like the Obe Kubel back in the lineup, looking really strong in that department. Krebs looking really strong, creating some chances on his own. Dahlin, of course, the goal he scored, going almost, taking the rush in by himself, shielding off a defender, cutting to the middle, and creating a goal. Owen Power, who never has the confidence to drive to the net himself, flies up the ice with speed and almost gets a goal himself by going backhand forehand on like kind of a half breakaway and is not able to find the back of the net. But there were chances like that all over the place. And the Sabres, I thought, deserved. They got a roar from the crowd during that stretch of play. And that 10 minutes has just got me feeling like, okay, that's in there, man. It's in there. They've got the talent to be able to go toe-to-toe with Florida. They've got the intensity to be able to go toe-to-toe with Florida. But the point of this game, for me, is while you've got that talent, you've got that intensity where you can hang with a team like that. You're not better than a team like that, but you could go through stretches where you look that good, where you look evenly matched. You just can't have the mental errors. And there were a lot of mental errors in this game. We'll get to the ones that ended up in the back of their net. Some of the highlights, or I should say, highlights of this game. Jason Zucker, a second straight game with a power play goal. This one was a nice redirection out in front of the net. Thompson gets another assist. Peterka gets another assist on the air. The Dahlin goal that I mentioned as well. Some good moments, some really nice moments in this game by the Sabres. When you look at the end of the day when it comes to shots, pretty evenly matched. 31 for Florida, 28 for the Sabres. Overall shot attempts in this game, 44 for Florida, 43 for the Sabres at 5-on-5. Scoring chances were actually way in favor of Florida, 22-11, but high danger chances 5-4 in favor of Florida. And when you look up at the end of the game, the expected goals for percentage, 57% for Florida, so a little bit in their favor, 42, actually a good amount in their favor, 57-42. Sabres really let their foot off the gas at the end of the game. They kind of quit at the end of the game, if you ask me. You also had the Dahlin play that got them behind, and that's a big reason why these numbers look the way it was. You've got Dahlin taking a penalty. He slashes a dude in the face just out of anger, and you got kind of a mini brawl that starts up after. Dahlin, by the way, has been fined for that play, deservedly so. You can't have that penalty from your captain. And that's another one of the negatives, I guess, from that game is that you took 6 penalties. And you just can't have that happen. You can't be shorthanded that many times and expect to win hockey games. So I know there's negatives, but again, I'm so impressed with those stretches of play they had where they looked really good that I'm not feeling that bad. Listen, it's Florida. It's Florida. You're going to lose games like that. You're not on their level. It's a simple matter of fact. You're not on their level. These 3 games coming up, Islanders, Red Wings, Senators, those are teams I'm going to care more about them beating. I did get asked on the text line, joinsubtext.com/LockedOnSabres, 2 days ago from a listener, if you could only win one of the next 2, would you rather beat Florida or would you rather beat the Islanders? And it's a good question because if you beat Florida, it's like, whoa, you beat Florida. Like how impressive that would be. But I said Islanders because Islanders are a team I'm expecting to be in competition with at the end of the year. Florida's not. So it's okay that they lost this game. They split with Florida in their first 2 of the season. I know they got the injury luck in the last game. Maybe you could sneak one more win out against them over the course of the season. But it's more important for me that they beat the teams they're going to be competing with rather than a team like Florida, who is the top of the conference. Like that is the bar to reach. They're the defending champions. They're 2-time defending Eastern Conference champions. They have a lot of work to do before I think they're allowed to, we can consider them in the same ballpark as this team that they just faced. Let's come back with some of these mental errors I've been talking about on the goals that went in the back of their net. What went wrong? We'll break down those plays when we come back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. And then I've got some lines that I think could fit for splitting up Dylan Cozens and Jack Quinn, because I think it's time that the Sabres do that. That's all coming up here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. This episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Get ready to tackle all the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Download the app, never waste a hunch, and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the National Football League. This episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast also brought to you by Game Time. Game Time, this new feature called Game Time Picks, makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff, shows you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I talked about my experience last week when I went to that Sabres Stars game. I thought I had tickets, then I realized I had it for the wrong game. I had them for Friday's game against the Islanders. So what do? I'm standing in front of the arena. I want to go. Let me check out the Game Time app. It's like 15 minutes before face-off, but they've got tickets available. They've got really good deals. Didn't cost me what I was thinking it would cost me to go to that game at the last second. Great deals on FanDuel. Picks is one way to filter out the fluff. Lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. You can download the app today, Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Sneaky Joe DiBiase back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Check us out on our YouTube channel if you would like to watch the show. Trying to involve both colors a little bit in the backdrop today. Got some blue and gold, got some black and red. I believe they have a black and red game coming up. I had that written down right here. Give me 2 seconds. And yes, their next game is going to be the Islanders game. So Friday against the Islanders will be their next black and red game. How about this game? 5-2 Florida over the Sabres. I mentioned, I thought the Sabres played pretty well for the strength of their opponent, how good they looked in the second period. But what went wrong? Stupidity. Just dumb plays. Dumb plays and team defense plays that should be textbook that the Sabres make difficult on themselves. Just simple mental errors that cost them this hockey game. And really, it happened on each of the first 3 Panther goals. The last 2 are, I'm going to focus mostly on the first 3, because the last 2, Panthers have the lead. One's a power play goal. Sabres are behind. It's just a great shot. The second third period goal by Barkov, just he flies in on a rush. It's just a superstar making a great shot, and he scores from the wing too. The first 3 are the problem that I've got. This game could have very easily been 2-0 Sabres going into the third period. But 3 critical mental errors cost them goals. And let's start in the first period with the first goal by Jesper Boquist. This play is just one mental error. Bo Byram does a terrible job at recognizing what is happening in front of him. He pinches up inside the blue line thinking that he's going to force a turnover while he has no backup. You can go up and try to do that if you've got backup, or if it's close to a 50-50 puck. Neither of those 2 things were true on this play. This play is on Byram. Byram just misreads it. 1, the Panthers have possession. You're not really that close to forcing a turnover unless you think you're a ball-hawking safety that's about to jump up and steal this puck away. And 2, no one's behind you. So it takes a simple outlet pass from Florida, and they're off to the races 2-on-1, Lundell and Boquist. And Owen Power doesn't do a great job of forcing a tough pass from Lundell. It's an easy pass across from Boquist, and then he walks in alone and scores on Luukkonen. But it all started because Byram pinched up at the blue line instead of backing off for what would have been a simple 2-on-2 rush. You defend that 9 times out of 10. Instead, he made it a 2-on-1 when it didn't have to be a 2-on-1. So poor decision there by Bo Byram made it 1-0 in favor of Florida. 2-0 Florida. They're on the power play. You're already a man short. When you're a man short, you inherently are going to play more defensive, more conservative. You are not meant to chase to the wall nearly the same way as you would in 5-on-5 when you're at 5-on-4. Rasmus Dahlin is the culprit here. Matthias Samuelsson is covering and defending Alex Barkov. And he's not doing a terrible job. He's not about to steal the puck away, but Barkov has a little bit of the edge on him. But Samuelsson has him on the perimeter. He's coming around behind the net, and at best, he's going to get a wraparound attempt, or he's going to try to shuffle a pass across, but he's not heading for a very high percentage play. Samuelsson's got the man. Rasmus Dahlin, the captain of the team, who has had a very poor start to the year, he decides, I'm going to try to jump Barkov. I'm going to try to cut out in front of him behind the net, and I'm going to, I guess, light him up behind the net. What instead happens, and this is why on a penalty kill situation, it's just not worth taking this risk if you're Dahlin. 5-on-4, maybe, because then you have an extra forward that could cover up for your mistake if you don't execute. In this situation, this is why it's not worth the risk. 5-on-4, maybe you have a forward that could cover up for you. Or 5-on-5, maybe there's a forward there. 5-on-4, there's not enough people on the ice. You miss this, it's a wide open chance in front of the net. And that's exactly what happens. Dahlin tries to jump Barkov, who is one of the smartest players in the NHL. He is a superstar. Barkov, it is cake for him. Easy work for Barkov. He sees Dahlin coming a mile away. And for him, this is an easy play. I'm just going to put this pass behind my back because guess what? Sam Reinhart now, because of what Reinhart did, or because of what Dahlin did, Reinhart's all alone in front. All by himself. And all he's got is the goaltender to beat. And he does it. So Dahlin does not have to jump in there at all. Because you could freeze frame it, put it on a wall if you're Lindy Ruff in the locker room today. Maybe not for everybody to see. Maybe just for Dahlin. Freeze frame it. You got two defensemen behind the net and Reinhart alone with the puck in front of the net. That should never happen. And it especially should never happen in a penalty kill situation where you have two guys covering one man behind the net. So that's what made it 2-0. Then let's skip forward to the third Panther goal. The Sabres had tied the game at this point. Now it's a couple minutes after they had tied it. Dahlin had scored a nice goal. And here we go again. Carter Verhaeghe. Now this one is a player that I've had very few problems with all season long. In fact, I think he's been the Sabres' best player. But even their best players in the league make mistakes sometimes. And this one was on Tage Thompson. 3-2. Carter Verhaeghe scores the goal. How does it happen? Again, second goal in a row Florida scores where the Sabres have two men covering one player. This time, it's less about taking a risk that Dahlin took. It's more about just not recognizing who's got who. In this situation, it's kind of like a 3-on-3, a little bit of a 3-on-4. Florida's got a trailer coming in from behind, but he's a little far away from the play, but he's coming. It's mostly a 3-on-3. Everybody's got a man to grab. And Owen Power has his man. He has Matthew Tkachuk. He's in front of him. He's between Tkachuk and the goaltender. And I don't think Thompson recognizes it. The play happens very fast. Thompson runs over to Power's man. And I don't know if he knows that Power is standing right there. Maybe he's in his peripheral. He doesn't have him in his peripheral. So Power's man, Tkachuk, is now also being covered by Tage. So 2-on-1. What happens there? You're opening yourself up to a man standing by himself for the second consecutive play. And that's what happens. This time, Tkachuk, though, takes the shot. Luukkonen makes the save, rebounds right in front, laying there on a platter for Carter Verhaeghe. And Carter Verhaeghe has nobody around him because the guy that probably should have been covering Carter Verhaeghe, not even probably, on film review, I guarantee you the Sabres and their coaching staff would be showing and saying, hey, Tage, next time this happens, this is your guy. You're the centerman. And Thompson knows it. Thompson doesn't need the coaches to say it, I'm sure. He probably knew it right after when he looked at the iPad on the bench. You got to cover the man in front. You got to, if you're going to be a good defensive center in the league, which I think Thompson has improved immensely at in the last couple of years. That's one where that's just recognition. That is, who's got who? I cover this guy. That was a miscommunication of, oh, I covered your guy too. Turn around. Oh, he's by himself. Goal. And that's how it ends up in the back of the net. 3 mental errors for the Sabres on 3 goals. On the 1-0 goal, the 2-0 goal, and the 3-2 goal. And that's how they found themselves down going into the third period. 3 smart decisions in a row, and they could have been leading that game 2-0. We will take a timeout here, and we will come back with, I want to talk about the Dylan Cozens line. And I got some text answers on this too. We were talking about our text line today. I think it's time to break up Dylan Cozens and Jack Quinn. But that's easier said than done. It's a tough group of lines to put together if you're going to split them up. So we'll get to that when we come back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast with Joe DiBiase. This episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick one or pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. So, Prize Picks, you can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Now offers Venmo for quick and easy deposits with withdrawals into your account for this sports season. Football, basketball, baseball, while the World Series is still going on. It's all available to you. Sign up today. Get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Download the Prize Picks apps today. Use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the Prize Picks app. Code LOCKEDONNHL. $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Check it all out on Prize Picks. Prize Picks, run your game. Final segment here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. Let's get to Dylan Cozens and Jack Quinn as a combo. They had another line mate last night. This time it was Nicholas Aube-Kubel. They've had Zach Benson this year. They have had Yuri Kulik, and now they have had Nicholas Aube-Kubel. And when you look up at the end of it and what the line looked like, of their 4 lines, they were third when it came to Corsi for percentage. 42%, which is not good at all. In fact, actually, no, they were last. They were last when it came to Corsi for percentage. Cozens, Quinn, and Aube-Kubel. Actually, the only line that was worse, this is why I got, was when Krebs was with Dylan Cozens and Jack Quinn. So those two as a combo, no matter, they kind of split between Aube-Kubel and Krebs last night. Neither combination worked at all. It's not worked all season. So far, Cozens has not scored. And Jack Quinn has not scored on a goaltender. His only goal of the year is on an empty netter. Something's got to give. And I think it's time to declare. So Chad DeMinicis expected Buffalo talking about this today also. He's on board, I think, with this as an idea that just a lot of the Sabres media talking about the same thing. This isn't original, but it's just time to break them up. It's time to break them up. But how you do that is not so easy. I asked that to our text club. Like, what would you do? What would you do to split them up? And I got a couple of different answers. One texter said, I honestly would try Peterka, Cozens, and Quinn for a game. Put the kid line back together. It worked well. Other than that, he said I would try Cozens on the wing. These are a couple of solutions. We've heard a lot about how to kind of get this thing going. 2 important players to your build that just are giving you absolutely nothing right now. Here's what I would try. This is what I would try line-wise. And keep this in mind. The dilemma here is, do you split up another line that's working to try to get 2 lines that are working? The Thompson line, from my perspective, I'm not touching it. I do think you can rewind to the offseason and you could start this commentary at the Jeff Skinner decision. When they bought out Jeff Skinner, what they were doing was giving up on a top 6 forward and I think hoping to replace him, which they never really did. So now Peterka jumps up to the top line because he takes Skinner's spot, and there's no one now to take Peterka's spot. And maybe Peterka would have Cozens and Quinn playing well, but I just wouldn't even attempt to do it. I wouldn't even go down that road because I'm not touching the top line. The top line is one of the things that's carrying the Sabres so far this year. It's been one of the best lines in hockey so far this year. I'm not touching it. So if I want to try to get the second and third lines going rather than just the third line, I'm taking a risk by splitting it up, but I'm going to try to split it up if it's me. I understand, though, the argument, like, let me just not touch it. The idea of I'll leave the Cozens line to rot because I know I've got the McLeod line cooking. That's a theory. That's a way you could do it. Not what I would do. This is what I would try. And give me one game as the coach, this is maybe what I would throw together. I've got the top line exactly the same. I wouldn't touch it. I would just basically flip Cozens and McLeod. I would put Cozens with Greenway and Zucker because right now, Cozens is a very fast player that isn't thinking very fast. So I need him more on instinct. I need him more on creating chaos. I need someone that's able to keep up with him speed-wise if this is how he's going to play. And I think the guy for that is Jason Zucker. And I'm going to keep Zucker and Greenway together. Greenway a little more physical, maybe hoping he creates some space for Dylan Cozens, insulating Cozens with two line mates that have worked well together this year. I'm putting Cozens with Zucker and Greenway. The next line, the third line, or the 2B line, I would put McLeod with Benson and Quinn. Now, part of the reason I want to do this is I want to make sure Quinn still has somebody with speed, because right now, speed is the biggest question about Jack Quinn. And I would want to put someone that still has the foot speed with him, and that would be Ryan McLeod in this instance. So trying a different center, you're hoping you get a few more smarter plays, someone that's playing really well at the start of the year. McLeod, once Benson comes back healthy, he would still be the guy I'd put in there over Yuri Kulik, over Sam Lafferty, who I don't have in this lineup as well. McLeod with Benson and Quinn. That would be my first stab at this. Let me just flip McLeod and Cozens, keep the wingers together, and let me see if I could get both of those lines going. And then I have 4 lines that I all like, rather than 3 lines that I like and 1 line that we absolutely hate at this moment in time. That would be what I would give it a shot. What do I think is going to happen? I think you're going to see Quinn go into the press box before you see Quinn with a different center. That would be my guess. Give him another look in the press box. Give him another night off before you mess with anything. I doubt Lindy is going to want to touch the other line combinations. Maybe he'll want to throw Krebs up there on that second line again, but that didn't really work last night. It's a tough one. If you've got an idea for different lines that you like that is splitting up Cozens and Quinn, which I think it's time to do, give me your thought on our text line, or you can tweet us at Locked On Sabres. That's going to do it for us, though, today here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. We'll begin looking ahead to the Islanders, and also we'll go through some of our other big picture topics that we've been tracking. Also, power rankings, Eastern Conference power rankings we're going to have for you as well. So all that ahead here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. And if you want to check us out on YouTube, you can do that there. And check out Locked On Bills with Joe Marino if you're looking for some Bills chatter, or Steal and Flip have got you covered with Locked On Fantasy Hockey. We'll talk to you next time, though, here on the Locked On Sabres podcast.